check on the YouTube and make sure it's live. 1 second. Hold up. Not yet, no. Aha, yeah, we are. We're live on YouTube right now. Perfect. Okay, so thank you all of you for coming and agreeing to do this Talk Vegan live stream, where we're going to talk about some interesting topics, some of the most debated, let's say, and the most important topics around the movement. And yeah, it's good to have a diverse team. We've got people from different walks of life and even from different countries here. And this was the whole aim of this, basically, is to get some real people with real lives, not celebrities or anything like that, like real people, and to get their opinions on these important topics. So I will go through and give you all a quick introduction so that people know. Some people are obviously going to know who you are already, but I'll do a quick intro for those that don't. So we'll start with Shivya. If you want to wave.
Hi.
So Shivya is a travel blogger and author and a vegan, obviously, passionate about ethical traveling and animal rights. So yeah, thank you so much and welcome to the stream. We've got Cath, again, a blogger, but a vegan blogger, like blogs about veganism and some other things as well, right? I've seen some other stuff you blog about. It's mainly like vegan fashion, I think, and vegan products, and also obviously animal rights.
Yeah.
An activist as well, participating in some direct action events, and has also been on national TV to talk about veganism. So that's great. Francois, the one left. Francois is an investigator and an activist who works collecting important media content, video content, exposing some of the darkest and most disturbing places on Earth, some of these horrific things that he finds within the animal agriculture industries. So thank you, all of you, for coming here and agreeing to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of your topics and we're going to have a discussion. And then, as I've already mentioned to you, you will have the final word on each topic, basically. So we'll go and let's start with Shivya. So if you want to go ahead and tell us your topic, and then let's start the discussion. Let's go.
Sure. So my topic is something that's actually bothering me and has been, I think it's bothered every vegan out there. Whether they consider themselves an activist or not, which is the vegan guilt. The fact that even as we have this live stream, we know that there are millions of animals out there who are suffering, and we still, kind of live our lives. So the topic is around vegan guilt and how you deal with that.
So how to handle vegan guilt? So like knowing that no matter how hard we work and no matter what we're doing, there's always something happening. The animals are always suffering. Yeah. Okay. I actually want to ask Francois about this, because doing what you've done, and from what I see from you and the limited stuff you put on social media, you don't even put everything on social media. So I can only imagine the rest of the things that you're doing offline. How do you handle that?
I don't think vegan guilt is a thing. I think it's more of a question of how much work you're willing to put in, and what feedback you get from that work, and what you do from it. So, for example, if you're going to be blogging about a topic that you know is going to be sensitive and will get a lot of negative feedback, for example, because not many people think like you, I think that would be more something like guilt. Because when you are in for the animals, you're doing something for the animals, you're not going to feel guilty, regardless of the situation where you're at, because anything you're doing for the animals is a positive for it. You can always be doing more, sure, but I don't think vegan guilt is a thing. And I think labeling anything as vegan guilt is, in its essence, taking a victim's position when in fact we're not victims at all. We're actually very privileged, and we're very lucky to be alive and to be actually making a living from what we're doing, saving animals, if you are making a living from it, like I am, for example. So I don't really believe in that word in my own experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Cath? How do you feel about this?
I actually feel, Shivya, like I do feel guilty sometimes that I'm not doing enough, and especially with my social media, I am obviously an influencer, and that's how I earn my money. So I don't. I mean, a lot of the things that I post are to do with me and my life, and it kind of feels a bit selfish at times when you know that animals are suffering and there's things that you could be doing for animals, but at the same time, you have to earn a living. So yeah, I do understand, Shivya. I do understand what she's saying.
Okay. Yeah, and I think for me as well, it's kind of an interesting one because I see both sides of this. I see Francois' side in that if we talk about vegan guilt and how we feel, then in essence it's kind of shifting the focus maybe off what's happening to the animals and putting it on ourselves. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that it exists because even if I get anxious at sometimes, like, am I doing enough? I start to get anxiety about this. I wouldn't call it vegan guilt, but I think that's maybe what Shivya was getting at, in that sometimes we do feel like anxiety, that am I doing enough, and stressed, and I feel like that could be called vegan guilt. And I definitely know many people that have these same emotions as me, this anxiety, this nervousness, this am I doing enough, and oh, I'm taking a break and now I feel guilty because I've taken a break. Especially in the community, because you get like, someone like, I don't know, Joey or James, they go to Bali, and then you see the amount of hate they get for taking a break, so I think that kind of does hit us as well, that when we're doing something we enjoy, sometimes we feel like, should I be doing this? Am I allowed to do this? Should I feel guilty for relaxing or having a nice meal? So I feel there's quite a few layers to this vegan guilt, I think. Yeah. But Shivya, you can explain how you feel about this, and what is your take on it then, since it's your topic.
Yeah. I don't really have like a solution to it, but I do like Francois' approach that we need to shift the guilt towards gratitude, and that's probably going to propel us to do more than we're doing at the moment. So yeah, but I think it's important to acknowledge it, because a lot of our work drives people to be maybe to turn vegan, hopefully, and I think it's important to talk about the whatever you call it, the guilt or the anxiety or even the hopelessness that kind of creeps into this way of life because of everything that you're exposed to. So I just feel like in the community, it's something that should be talked about maybe more often. Of course, not shifting the focus away from animals, but also, like our own mental well-being, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you have any comments on that? I mean, I think maybe Francois is the one I'm asking here, because you have quite a strong opinion on that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the thing. Within the community, I can understand a lot of people feel bad because they see a lot of other people doing a lot more that they can be doing at the moment or should be doing. But I think not everybody is capable of doing what you guys are doing, what Cath is doing, or what David is doing, or what Shivya is doing, or what I am doing. I think you should be very aware of what you are capable of doing as an individual. And every single person, activist or not, has certain responsibilities that they have to abide to. I have no responsibilities. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have a child. I don't have to pay for any rent. I'm completely free to doing the work I'm doing. And so if people look at me and say, hey, I should be doing undercover investigative work also, but this person has children, has a mortgage, and cannot do it, they should not be feeling guilty for it. They should do as much as they can be doing. And it's not only also the possibility of not being able to do it simply because there are some obstacles in the way. It's also mentally, are you capable of doing it? Not everybody is capable of doing what other people are doing. It's just a fact of life. Not everybody is a pioneer in something new. Not everybody is capable of it. That's just it. And beating yourself with a stick on the head simply because you can't be like somebody else, or you feel like you're not doing enough, is not a productive way of seeing it. And we all know that the vegan movement is not led by just one person. It's led by a community. It's led by a huge amount of people that will make that change at some point or another. So you all contribute in a different way. So I that's why my opinion on vegan guilt is so, probably not the most liked, but I think it's the most realistic. It's like not everybody's capable of doing what we're all doing, and so you shouldn't compare yourself to anybody else, and just try to do what you think is the best, and just apply it however you want. And if you don't feel like doing it, then don't do it. So many people I've met are trying to be vegan influencers, but they don't have what it takes, and they don't even want to. They just do it because they think that's the most effective, but they didn't even consider the fact that maybe that's not what they actually want. And they can't do it because they're not capable of it. People don't like them or something, but their personality doesn't fit. There's a range of many things. So that's my saying on it, pretty much.
Yeah, I have to say I do like that, and like I think most of when I've been doing some different like speeches and talks recently, I'll be posting one soon, and I actually talk about people that are like the biggest influencers. I usually mention them, like Ed or Joey or James. I usually mention them because I tell people like what you've just said. Basically, it's that yes, they're good to look to for inspiration, and they're good to look to for education. They're fantastic to get out there and look at what they're doing, but don't hold yourself to the standards that they are acting in, because they do what they do because they are good at what they are good at. If you're not good at that, then you can't feel guilty for that. Like, if you are good at that, but you're not as famous as they are, again, that's nothing to feel guilty about. That means that this isn't your area. If that's not effective for you, but it is for them, so be it. You find something that is effective for you, that works, that you can do the most with your skill set. You know what I mean? It's not video editing and audio editing and interviewing and getting the camera set up, getting the people to set up to film you and getting the angles. And there's some people just don't, it's not their thing. You know what I mean? It's not the easiest thing in the world to do as well. You have to have some knowledge of how that stuff works. If you don't vibe it, if you're not technical, then you got to do something different. And maybe that thing won't make you let's say well known, but then I don't know why people seem to feel that if you're not well known, then you're not effective. That they attach success to followers. It's crazy. If I know people that have like hardly any social media followers at all, and they are some of the most effective activists I've met. There's just, for example, there's a guy I met at the last Cube of Truth in Wigan he's just such an unknown individual. He doesn't even really introduce himself. He's been traveling around cubes around the UK by himself without no social media, nothing, just because he wants to go to different cubes and be at as many as he can be at. This dude's an unsung hero, right? So it's not all about social media. I think a lot of the guilt comes from social media, in my opinion. I think pretty much all of it would come from social media, actually, I think. Yeah. What do you think, Cath? Have you got anything to add?
No, I actually think that Frank. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
That's all right.
Francois said it perfectly, and you are right. You do what you can do, and that's all you can do. Yeah,
definitely. And Shivya, do you want to close that? One final comment from yourself to close the topic?
Yeah. So I guess I can just summarize what everyone's saying and try to apply it in my own life, which is to have gratitude and to do what you can do.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. That's a good topic and a nice opening topic, and one that I think is so important for so many people. Brand new vegans, brand new activists, veteran vegans, veteran activists. Everybody's thinking about this. Everybody's experienced it, or is experiencing it. So I think that's really powerful, and it's going to help a lot of people. I hope this discussion would help a lot of people. Yeah. So let's move on to the next topic then. Let's go with Francois. Actually, let's go for your topic. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I wanted to discuss something that's often discussed in the movement, but just in general for any social movement in our history, and it's about effectiveness. What do you do to be the most effective in terms of change? That's pretty much it. Yeah.
So what do we have to do to get to, let's say, animal liberation is what we want?
Yeah. Yes.
And what is everybody's opinion on getting from A, where we are now, to B, animal liberation in the quickest time possible?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go with Cath. Looks like she's about to say something, so we'll go with you.
Yeah, I think the most effective way to animal liberation is for vegans and activists to support each other. I think infighting is doing absolutely nothing for the movement and for the animals. So I think if we have a disagreement on something, we express our disagreement. We don't continue it, and we revert back to the animals again. We don't waste time on unnecessary things that we don't agree on, because in any movement we're going to disagree on certain things. So I just think to stop putting too much time and energy into infighting.
Okay.
Yep.
Is
Good.
one point.
Okay. No, that's a really good point, and just I would comment. I guess I'll give my opinion now on that. Obviously 100% agree with that. I think a lot of time and energy is wasted on not on we can discuss tactics and we can discuss what we think is good or bad, but it's usually not discussion. Usually it's fighting. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it debate. It's arguments that I see more of, and I'm guilty of it, as I'm sure everybody here is guilty of it. You know, we've all argued with other vegans, and you know, I think I'll like go a step ahead of what you said. Actually, I'll go a step further than what you said, to add to your point, Cath, in that I actually think I've lost my point. Actually, I had a complete brain fart. No, what I was going to say is that, yeah, being aware of it. That's what I was going to say. Sorry, being aware of when this is happening and how we are conducting ourselves is so important. So taking a step back and breathing and saying, what am I achieving right now? What am I doing right now? And what is this going to achieve? I don't think anybody does that. And I think if everybody went and took a Vipassana meditation course, they would do a lot more of that. So that's what I would highly recommend for everybody. But in my opinion on what will get us from A to B includes what you said, Cath. And I think to add my points on this, like my core opinion on how this is that not one form of activism, not one action by itself is going to make that happen. I don't think there's any social justice movement ever that has succeeded from one action. It's just not happened. It's always been a culmination of multiple different actions from multiple different organizations, multiple groups with, you know, some of the tactics that some of us here would disagree with and some of us would agree with, you know, and this is the point of what you were saying, that some people don't like direct action, some people don't like welfareism, some people don't, you know, and I'm one of these people that doesn't agree with welfareism, but at the end of the day, we can't deny that it all has a place in this path that we're on, to try to get to animal liberation. And I feel like all the different angles are needed, even if we really, really don't like some of them. And as long as they're not counterproductive, that's the important thing.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say that, because some of them have consequences. Some actions may have big consequences that will stop any form of more professional and extreme or militant activism that will stop these people from being able to do this. For example, if we continue too much, I'm not saying it's not good, I'm just saying if we continue too much with Meet the Victims, with DXC rescues, mass open rescues, at the rate at which we're going, we will see a European ag law being put in place very, very shortly. Do we want that? Probably not, because we won't be able to show what's happening in these places, because now it will become such a crime to get this footage. Now we're just whistleblowers. So imagine the moment we're no longer whistleblowers, we're actually criminals with huge penalties on our heads and prison time. So there is like a mix of good things to do. That's just in one area, for example. Yeah.
Just to clarify for anybody watching that doesn't know what any of that stuff is, it's okay, man. Yeah, Meet the Victims is an event where there's many activists. Usually it's like a mass protest. So like maybe 100 or more activists will enter a farm during the day when the farm is open. It's not breaking and entering, it's trespassing, which is much less of an offense and definitely not punishable by imprisonment. And they'll go in and they will take the farm, as in they will stay inside the farm for as long as possible, documenting as much as possible, and they'll make some demands, and if these demands are not met, then they'll refuse to leave. Usually it will end with the police coming and removing them, but of course there will be a mass media frenzy, so it's very powerful. And the DXC rescues are similar, except that with a DXC open rescue, you'll just walk into a farm, pick up some animals and leave. Usually they'll aim for the most sick animals, the ones that actually, you know, if they're going to die right there and then if we don't take them. And again, this is trespassing, but they, in some countries at least, they have the legal right to take those animals out because those animals are not being cared for properly. Yes. So this can usually cause a mass media frenzy as well, and they get animal rights and veganism in the news, which is really important. So that's what Francois was referring to, just in case anybody was unsure. And Shivya, what is your opinion then? So how do we get from A, where we are now, to B, animal liberation in the most effective way possible?
Yeah, I think this goes back to the previous discussion as well, where we said that you have to do what you can do. And I think that works with different forms of activism as well, whereby, like some people are going to adopt, like more, if I may call them hardcore approaches to really showing what happens, for example, with doing like undercover investigation to show like really graphically what happens in the industry. But also there are other like subtle forms of activism, which is more about sort of nudging people to explore themselves what's happening. So I think there's space for both, and I think both are needed because not everyone's going to want to watch or be able to watch or even click on watching graphic footage. But
Yeah.
there are people who will maybe want to read or watch something that's a little more subtle and that encourages them to like explore themselves. And so I think there has to be a mix of that, and I think that is happening in the community as well. So yeah, like you said, like there is no wrong or right form of activism, but there's a bit of everything that's needed.
Yeah, yeah, I think I would agree with that. And to expand on that, what you said in that, I think those that need to see the graphic footage, those that need to see it, are not the vegans, right? So if there is a vegan or an activist that says, I cannot collect this, I cannot edit this, I cannot do it, then they're not to be told like, well, you're being ineffective. Then it's like, no, like nobody who knows about this should ever be forced to do it or see it if it's not going to work for them. So I think I'm with you on that. There needs to be multiple forms of activism that people can do that can't face those things like that. As Francois said earlier, like somebody's not mentally stable, they cannot handle it, like emotionally, they cannot handle it, then they need a different form of activism. And that, yeah, if everybody does what they can do, then I agree with you, that would get us to the goal a lot faster. But Francois, you've not given your full opinion on this yet, so give us what your thoughts are on it.
I think to get from A to B as quickly as possible, we need three things. We need first mass education, quick education about the issues and what animal rights means and what are the issues that come with it. Secondly, we need politics to get fully involved. So that means people will actually voice their opinion about it and want better care for the animals. It being ending, for example, as this first step, factory farming, for example, as they're trying to do right now in France. And the third one is normalizing activism for the oppressed. So the first one, I'd say, to educate people, it would be to go to schools and to actually explain to them what it is that we're talking about. I remember when I was younger, I was told about the environment and how it's going to shit, right? Well before now, the activism is picking up about it. I want that activism for the animals is as understood as it is for the environment. When people block, let's say, a coal mine from opening, every single person that barely has a brain and understands why it's important will applaud, and that's the majority of people. But when we go into a farm with 150 activists and we blockade it and we film and we take animals out, half or even more than half don't understand why we're doing it because they're not educated about the topic. So I think we really need to educate the population about the topic and why there's urgency behind it so that they can be on our side when we do it and applaud us, even if they're not vegan, even if they're not vegetarians, even if, only if they're against animal cruelty, which everybody is. The second one, the politics, we really need to reach out to them. And you do that by actually attacking big brands, by attacking the lobbies that are behind the politicians who are paying them, making them look so bad that the politicians don't want to be affiliated with them because then they won't be voted in the next term. And the last one, obviously, is to normalize activism in all sorts of parts, not just animals, also the environment, also human rights. All types of activism should be taken into account and not just say, okay, look, right now we're just going to focus on the animals. Sure, we can, but we should also touch upon a lot of different activities because we need to show that it's not just about the change of animals, which, yeah, I know it's very important. That's the topic, but it should also be about the mentality of our society that needs to shift. And it's always trying to harm the least amount of people, animals, the environment, etc. It's just a whole mindset shift that we need to get to. So I'd say education, the environment, education, the politics, and then making activism completely normalized on the platform without people having to tell us, hey, go get some jobs, because it's that's what we get all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what yeah.
Does anyone have any reaction to that? Any thoughts immediate thoughts on that?
I totally agree, really. There's nothing that I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too. But I wonder if you have any ideas of how this could drive into education, like how specifically it could happen.
I think the best way to get into education is to give presentations at school, like David does, and like I do sometimes as well when I have time. It's also to make sure that it ends up in the curriculum of schools, right? So when you talk about environmentalism, you also talk about what is the most polluting, and you'd like to see that meat and dairy and etc. Animal agriculture is one of the leading factor, not just transport, not just fashion. It needs to be added as well because.
Oh no, we lost him. Let's give him a second, see if he comes back. Whilst we're waiting for him to come back, I'll actually just make my comment on what he said, though. In that, like, I had never considered that we could talk to the schools about activists. Sorry, Francois, we lost you, so I'll just finish this point and come back to let you finish yours.
Go ahead.
So basically, you were saying about the schools, and that's something I'd never considered before. Actually, that when I'm doing my vegan talks in the schools, I'm mainly focusing on the animals, and which is obviously great, and them as individuals and what they can do. Where actually, I think what could be really effective is if I talk to them about activists and what activists are doing, why they're doing it, and then what they can do. Because once they know why activists do what they do and what happens to the animals, and they're going to make that connection, and then here's how you can be an activist, here's how you can join us. That's like a lot more powerful than just talking about what happens to the animals, but actually talking about the people who are trying to stop what's happening to them as well. That could be quite a nice thing to put into schools. I'm not sure the schools would be as receptive to it because I'm talking about, I don't know, I'm talking to them about civil disobedience and things may not go down well, but I do see your point with that, and that could be really powerful. But we lost you about halfway into your last point, man. I don't know where.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what I was saying either. To be honest.
Yeah.
But I was talking about making sure that we get into your question, Shiva, was how do you get into education?
Education, yeah.
Yeah, so and that ties back in with politics too. We need to have people in politics who are willing to put this in curriculums too, who are willing to put this into the educational system to make it public and make sure that the lobbies are no longer having such an influence on what they're learning. Because just now I'm here in Germany with a friend of mine, and she receives these things, which are like little things to help you feed yourself properly. And when you open it and you go at the end of the book, it's I don't think she removed it, but at the end of the book, it's basically sponsored and lobbied by the dairy industry, and that's given at schools, right? So if we can get politicians who understand that this is absolutely wrong and shouldn't be done, you can start removing that, and you can start taking steps much more quickly. And we can get to that point much more faster, because these young kids who are between 12 and 18 will be able to, when they get to 18, choose what they want to study. And if they want to study, let's say, renewable energies or environmental studies, etc., then they can actually start doing activism at the same time and get the ball rolling, because we're just at the tip of the iceberg. We're just starting. I think, we're just getting started in terms of activism for the animals. So they're the next ones who are going to take over anyways. So I think that's the biggest force we have. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I think I don't think any of us disagree with you here. I don't think there's much more to discuss. Does anyone have any extra points to add here? Anything that they want to add at all?
Not really. I just worry that it's something that really can't be, like, we can't get in there because the meat and dairy industry is part of the government. It's a multi-billion-pound industry. How do we get in there and try and change their minds, apart from sort of making them aware that they can make money from veganism, because that's what it's all about.
Yes and no. I'd say it'd be really important to, like I said before, attack the lobbies. So by making videos that directly attack their brands and not letting them rebrand, because then you expose that again and again and again. You kill, for example, the dairy industry by attacking that highest brand and attacking that, for example, that lobby's brand as well, that is sponsoring this in schools and showcasing how corrupt they truly are. It may be dangerous, because I'm sure at some point it will get dangerous. I'm sure at some point they'll defend themselves. They might even go as far as killing people if they tell the truth too much. Sure, at some point they will. But I think that's the best way to do it, is to really attack the big brands and then make their credibility just go down the drain as much as we can. And by supporting other brands that are actually doing it better. It's the same with banks, for example. You shouldn't be supporting a bank that's not doing well. So you apply to a better bank and you talk about it and you explain it. But we should also, for example, truly attack the big banks and tell them, yeah, you guys are doing bullshit. You guys are spending money in weaponry and deforestation and animal agriculture. None of these things are ethical things to do. Why are you doing it and stuff like that? I think and we have that power because we have the footage, and then we have the cubes that take care of showing people the footage. But each time we should have a brand linked to it so people can remember this is the main big brother that is linked to that, and these are the bad ones like Nestle and these big guys. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because I don't have a solution to that. I don't. It's just an idea that I have, and that's what I want to do. I want to just expose the shit out of these big brands.
I think that we should expose these brands, like places like McDonald's, like the big
Sure.
like and places like that. You think we should expose them? You don't think that we should try and get them on board with veganism to because is there a chance that we can ever fully shut them down? Do we get on board and we say, here you go, you can make money from veganism, like switch to vegan products?
That's a hard one. I don't know enough about how they operate and how they switch their business inside and how they take opportunities. Because all I know is that these huge businesses make investments over more than 25 years. So if they made an investment on developing certain kind of meats or certain kind of burgers or whatever, they have to have return on that investment. And so if we can break that investment and show them that this is not what we want, they'll have to make a sacrifice and lose money, obviously. That's more like the point I'm trying to make, is to try to break that investment that they made, because it's because they expect return on it, and they've calculated that they'll have enough return on it to invest even more. But if we can break that before they actually manage to get halfway through, But this thing, they keep everything secret, so it's very difficult to know where they are in their investments.
To comment on what you said, Cath, like I'm on Francois' way of thinking with this when it comes to McDonald's or any of these businesses, because it's like to advocate for McDonald's to go vegan is like advocating for a slaughterhouse to start growing vegetables. It's probably never going to happen. They will shut down before they go vegan. They might add vegan options, like the slaughterhouses in Finland have started to make vegan pizzas and vegan burgers. You know what I mean? So they might add some options, but to expect them to completely redesign their entire business model, all the equipment, everything, just scrap a lot of it and start making vegan food, that, in my opinion, that I see that as, if I would believe that, I would call myself naive. I would say for them for us to change them, if you want a fully vegan McDonald's, we have to break them down first. Like when they're not going to go fully vegan whilst we give them money. They're going to go fully vegan if they make absolutely no money and they are completely exposed to the world for what they do. When people say no, then they would close down and relaunch and be like, okay, we listened. Here's what we've done. But I don't see it the other way. I don't see us funding them. I don't see them going vegan.
See, I don't see people ever saying I don't want to eat a McDonald's because it's meat. I mean, people are always they're addicted to meat and dairy. But if there's an option there that tastes the same, I think it will make it easier for people to switch, and eventually they'll have half and half vegan options, meat options. They'll realize that people are eating the vegan options, more people eat the vegan options, and I do believe that that's the way that it could go, and that's how it could go vegan. That's just my belief on it. Maybe I am naive to think that, but I just don't think that it can be shut down. I just don't think that it can be shut down. I think it has to be a gradual change. You have to change the people before you can change the places.
That's true. I would say I'm not like, don't misunderstand me in that. Like, I'm not saying I'm against them having a vegan option, but what I'm talking right here to 3 vegan activists. So what I'm saying here is, should our goal be to support McDonald's and make them go vegan? And I would say my opinion, our goal, no, I don't think that should be. Them having vegan options and non-vegans that aren't activists or new vegans or non-vegans or environmentalists, vegetarians, they can go to McDonald's all they want. If they want to go and support them all they want, that's their call. But if I'm talking about activists, if I'm talking about people that are spending their lives trying to change the world, and they ask me, is supporting McDonald's a sensible option for an activist? I would absolutely say no, 100% no. As activists, like in my opinion, we have to be held to a higher ethical standard than non-activists, because I feel like with us putting our faces and names out there to say that we are against exploitation, we are the ones that are fighting for it, to then go and give our money to one of the worst businesses on the planet for the worst for the planet, worst for the animals, to give them money because they have one option. I just feel like it sends a very confusing message to the people that look to us as, you know, we're trying to change the world for animals, but we're spending money here. I can't, I personally, this is for me, I'm talking about me. And if someone asks me for my opinion, I'm not going to go and tell activists what to do, but we're talking about it now. It's a discussion. So that's why I said it. But, and I've taken some crap for saying this, as some of you may have seen online. I've taken a lot of abuse for saying this, but I truly believe that, in that, yeah, I really do.
What about places like supermarkets and things like that? Because obviously they exploit animals just as much as these big chains. How do you expect people get around that if I mean, everywhere
I understand. Yeah, I understand. So like I'd say the majority of people have little to no choice but to shop in a supermarket. But they do have a lot of choice whether or not to go to McDonald's. So I'd say that's a really important thing. Like necessity should come into this. Like if something is a luxury item, we should look for the most ethical way of purchasing that luxury item. So like a burger is a luxury item. So if someone is going to go out and buy one, then, you know, if as an activist or somebody who is considering themselves, you know, as ethical as possible, I would say that person would be better looking for something that is the most ethical version of that burger, really. And the McDonald's one is definitely at the bottom of that list of what is most and least ethical. In terms of the supermarkets as well, they do function a little bit differently. So like they are buyers and sellers. So like in a supermarket, the whole supply and demand thing, it actually is a little bit more valid in a supermarket, because they will not supply anything that has no demand. Or not many things, because they literally are buyers and sellers. They buy stuff, they resell it. That's it. So they're not necessarily culpable for the things they're buying and reselling. In my opinion, it's a little bit different. McDonald's, on the other hand, like owns its own farms. Like it literally owns farms and slaughterhouses. So like our money is directly going to them to then kill animals. You know what I mean? So I see it slightly different, but mainly necessity though. Mainly is necessity. Like people have to shop in supermarkets. The majority of people have to, but I think pretty much most of us can avoid McDonald's or Burger King, or not just those places, you know, even just stuff like Starbucks and Costa Coffee, like these massive chain industries that are like destroying the planet and killing and using billions of animals. I would just say we could make a bit of an effort and avoid them, and go to like if you can't find a fully vegan place, go to your local little cafe then instead of Starbucks, you know. There's always another option that's a little bit more ethical. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I don't think people should be, you know, shunned from doing that. And I don't think I should have to defend myself on it. Not to you, but like I'm defending myself quite a lot to people who come after me like, oh, you're just trying to take it too far. You're trying to out vegan me. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to live the most ethical way that I think I can live. That's all. And I think we could all try a little bit better. That's basically the point.
I think that's the thing as well. Like we all have our opinions on things, and like with that, with regards to McDonald's and big chains and stuff like that, we all have our opinions, and actually none of us can say we are 100% right on that's the way forward for animal liberation. We just have an opinion on it, and we just have to express that opinion, and it's changeable as well. Like I might change my mind in another couple of months and say, actually, I don't think that we should be supporting, and I'm not saying I'm supporting McDonald's, I'm supporting the vegan options. Like I take the same stance that Joey takes. That I think that it is a good thing, and it's pushing the movement forward. That's my stance.
Yeah. I don't know. I go, Shivya. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add some perspective. I kind of agree with Cath on this. Because I feel like, I mean, sure, I don't want to support McDonald's and their slaughterhouses, but I do want to support their vegan options. And I do want people to support their vegan options just to show them that this can be a viable way of business. And I think like it's never going to be a complete transition. You know, like we can declare war against McDonald's and expect them to shut down. But I don't think that's going to happen, very practically speaking. But there is a possibility that McDonald's could be half vegan or like 3/4 vegan and maybe someday fully vegan. But I think it's all about the business for them. It's all about what they think people want and what's going to give them money. And I think the only way to do that is to kind of support that. But I also have two other perspectives. Like I think we're talking about what's the most effective way to get from A to B, and I think this could be one way where we target chains like McDonald's that have huge reach and access. And when McDonald's offers a vegan option, everybody sees it, and everybody who shops at McDonald's, which is a lot more people that go to like an all vegan cafe, for example. It's a lot more people getting the vegan message in some form, and I think that seed, like ultimately, it grows into something else. It can, and I think the other thing is also about like privilege and access, because there is a perception that veganism is still a very elitist thing. It's only if you're rich that you can be vegan and you can shop at like farmers markets or these specialty buy like vegan alternatives and so forth. But when McDonald's gives you an alternative to buy vegan, it just makes the whole idea of being vegan a lot more accessible to people who don't have a lot of those privileges.
Sure.
Francois, what are your thoughts on this?
I'd agree with Cath and Shivya. I don't really care if they have a vegan option. I think most people should just not go to McDonald's. If you have alternatives, you should not go. It's that simple. But if you don't, and if it's on the go, then be my guest. But the approach that Shivya is taking, I think, is a very slow one. I think that's assuming that we have time, a lot of time, which we don't. We don't have very much time. And so, talking about effectiveness, I think it'd be more effective to just, for example, cigarettes, they're not banned yet, although we know they're so bad for you, right? We know they kill you. We know they exploit people in South America. We know it leads to just awful diseases, and taxes go into, helping people who have issues with cigarettes and et cetera, and these diseases. Yet it's not illegal because people are making money out of it. It's the same with the meat industry. To me, when I see McDonald's, I see it as something that's absolutely horrendous for your health, horrendous for the environment, horrendous for the animals, horrendous for everyone. And so at some point, I hope to see that these kind of businesses will be criminalized, as in it wouldn't be legal to sell meat in that way. Even at some, I hope there will be no meat at all, but I highly doubt it. But I hope it be legal to sell meat in that way that makes you sick, that kills animals, and that kills the environment. And so that's why I believe that David has a more valid point on that, because that would be the more effective and fastest way to avoid having McDonald's as only looking out for profit, like you said, Shivya, because we'd actually be giving money to actually the alternatives. For example, in Berlin, people are so lucky there. They have a supermarket which is fully vegan. It's called Vegans. I know not everybody has it, but that's one of the examples of which kind of businesses you should be supporting, because they are fully vegan. I'm sure some of the vegan products are not that ethical, and some of them, have issues. Granted, I'm sure, but it's a much better option if you can take that option. If you can't, fine. But to just focus on one little option that they're going to offer, like a vegan pizza or a vegan burger, I think it's one of the questions that really doesn't really matter, because it'd be too slow for people to make the transition. Because people are still going to eat meat regardless, because there'll be that option anyways. And the vegan option is only going to appeal to people who one day want to feel a little healthier. And in fact, it's probably not as healthy as they think it is. And so it's just a question of, do you really want to put your money in that bullshit? That's rationally speaking, do you want to tell people, yeah, take the vegan option at McDonald's? Because I know it's bad for your health anyways, but take that vegan option because it will create demand. No, why don't you put that money in actual things that you need to put the money into to create demand, like actually vegetables in the supermarket, or options that are more vegan friendly elsewhere in restaurants, where they have a different business model where they can change. They don't own slaughterhouses, like David said. They don't own farms. And so for me, it would be way too slow. That change would be way too slow, because I don't think we have time for it. At the rate at which we're going, the planet is not going to be able to sustain itself. And at the rate at which we're going to go straight for a resource war. We're going to be involved. Europe is going to be fighting. We're going to commit genocides in all of Africa and all these countries in Africa to steal their resources in the future too. So I don't think we have time to really discuss this point. It's not a existential point. Should we eat the vegan option at McDonald's or not? It doesn't add much to the conversation, I think, in terms of effectiveness, because it's too slow for me. Yeah.
Okay, man, I think we'll close that point on you then. I think you pretty much put it to bed, kind of summarized and concluded. You agree with all of us, but added your own part as well, which was actually a really interesting take on it. Okay, man. So let's go for, well, it's either me or you, Cath. I think we'll go with you, with your point, with your topic.
So my topic is intersectionality, and is it a good or a bad thing, and what are your experiences with intersectional vegans?
So I just want to quickly clarify what that means. So for those watching that haven't heard this term before, it's the intersectionality is actually got nothing to do with veganism, but it is a term that was adopted by some members of the vegan activist community. Now they've changed it to consistent anti-oppression, I believe, activists that are for consistent anti-oppression. Basically what they believe is that to end what is happening to the animals, to end animal exploitation, we also have to be fighting actively for and trying to end other forms of oppression. So, for example, like racism, sexism, transphobism, to name just 3, which of course there are many more. But basically, they believe that to end one, we have to end all of them, and that all vegan activists who are not doing that are not going to be effective. So this is basically what intersectionality means, or consistent anti-oppression means. I think for the sake of the rest of the live stream, we'll just refer to it as intersectionality and intersectionals, because it's just a lot faster than saying anti-oppression every time I have to say it. And it's easier to say, and I think we're all used to that term, even though they have definitely changed now. They don't call themselves that. But yeah, the question is it a good or a bad thing? So does anyone have any like immediate reaction to that, or immediate response on that?
In an ideal world, yeah, it'd be great.
Okay.
But seeing as how complex our social structures are, no, it's not effective. Definitely not. It's taking the focus away from very important topics that are so complex in themselves too, that we'd actually lose focus and would actually become counterproductive, because too much energy will be spent in smaller things that are not important, just like the vegan burger, in my opinion, or at McDonald's. And yeah, I think we're just going to lose focus, and people cannot take you seriously. I had an example, for example, at the Hamby Forest. I was recently driving by it. I don't know if you heard about it, the coal mine that's been opened a few 50 years ago, and they're just destroying the entire forest. And they have activists there who live there to stop, from the forest from being destroyed. But the issue is that the activists who are there are anti-capitalism, they're anarchists, they're vegans, they are all the things that are against the system, all of them, right? But how can anybody relate to their cause if they're all of these things? And if you can't be part of their team, if you're not like them? Because an environmentalist will come to them and say, hey, I want to help. How can I help? Can I also camp with you and help you out and stop the trucks from coming? No, they will tell you they can't because you are not part of their team. You don't think like them. And this is what's happening. We're actually creating big bubbles within bubbles. And we're already enough in our bubble in the vegan movement, right? We're in a big bubble and we try to burst it sometimes with videos and stuff. But this is even making it harder, and the focus is disappearing. And to me, it's a way that will only make us even slower. Take one issue at a time. Yes, they're interlinked. I'm not going to lie about that. But take one issue at a time and try to make the best out of it. Because otherwise you're just going to lose yourself in so many debates. We already saw here in the debate, we've been shifting between different things very fast. Imagine if you start talking about so many other things, even within the activists, there'll be so much more infighting than we already have now in our movement as well. So it's just going to slow everything down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Shivya, what are your thoughts on this as a concept?
Yeah, I agree with Francois. I think these issues are important, no doubt. But I think trying to do everything at the same time just dilutes each of them, and especially the vegan movement. And just to give a completely different example, it's like, if you go to a restaurant these days, you can see not just vegan options, but also gluten-free and keto and paleo and whatnot. And I think that just dilutes the whole idea of veganism, because then people think that, oh, like this is just a trend or a diet, which it's not. And I think that's the same with, of course, these are much more important issues than keto or paleo or whatever, but it definitely dilutes the movement, and it makes people feel like if they want to transform, if they want to switch over, then they not only have to, adopt a plant-based lifestyle, but they also have to do all these other things, which would be great if they did, but they don't have to. I mean, one issue at a time. But at the same time, I had another point, but I forgot.
Okay. That's fine. If it comes back, just chip in and we'll continue. But I have to say, like what Francois said, I have to completely agree with you, man. What these individuals it started with good intentions, and I think in the start it was good. Like I was even swayed by it. I was convinced. I was like, actually, this is pretty. I like this. I actually really like what you're saying. But very quickly it became apparent that I wasn't enough invested in the topics they wanted me to be invested in. So it's people who are on the left side of the political spectrum, okay? And basically the feedback I had, like, I'm not left enough. Like I'm left and I'm telling, yeah, okay, I'm in with you, but not enough. So I can't be in this team, just like you said. And this isn't just me. This is many people that I know that have been attacked or criticized for not being enough of what they want them to be. And this is because they, like I said, they have the best intentions of helping everyone. And we still have some really bad human issues in society. And they'll say like the three of us here that are white, they will say we could never understand this because we're white and this is our privilege getting in the way. And it's like, no, I think most sensible people agree that racism and sexism are both wrong, and that being transphobic is wrong, and that being homophobic is wrong, no matter what color of your skin you have and what your sexual preference is or what your gender is. Most people see it as wrong, but that's not enough. And I feel like they create this team, like you were talking about, Francois, where it's almost impossible to be enough to be in that team unless you literally just completely turn over your entire life and all of your priorities to fit what they want you to fit. And that's not feasible for the majority of people. And honestly, I agree with you, and I don't think it's effective either, to completely rewrite everything you ever thought about or knew, and all of your activism, all of your advocacy, just completely changed all of it to fit somebody else's agenda, because otherwise they will call you names or call you bigoted and things like that. It's just, yeah, it's pretty toxic, and this is my experience of it so far. But yeah, so Cath, now you can give your thoughts on this.
So I think naturally as vegans, we are all intersectional anyway. We are, well, I'd say most vegans, I hope, are anti-racist, anti-sexist. They are against oppression of all forms. But like you said, our main focus is animal liberation, and we don't have enough time to put into every single box. There's not enough time. And yeah, I just think sometimes intersectionals, and I say intersectionals in brackets because I don't believe a lot of intersectionals are actually intersectional, because I've seen so much bullying online because people don't agree with what their beliefs are. And true intersectionality is virtually impossible when you think about things like religion, which most religions have something that is slightly oppressive in it. So how can you agree fully with everything? You can't. It's virtually impossible to be fully intersectional. So where do you draw the line?
Yeah. But that comes back to kind of the same speech pattern we have about being a perfect vegan, a purist. And to me, intersectionalists, they have really good intentions. I can understand some of the points, but to me, they're acting like the vegan police on the morality and how to be and how to behave. And there are so many points where I agree with. It's just that in this position, I think, for example, if we were to tackle anti-capitalism, for example, we wouldn't have time to do it by the time where animals are liberated. And so if we focus so much on feminism or anti-transphobia, etc., but if there's no will to attend to because we didn't act upon it fast enough, then what is the point of even talking about sexism if there's no world to attend to? Because we know if there's nothing, if the catastrophe comes, because it will come, we know it will come sooner than expected now, sexism won't even be a word anymore. Survival would be a word.
Yeah.
That's what it will be, right? And so for me, it's like tackle the biggest issue, tackle the elephant in the room. Animal agriculture is the elephant in the room at this current moment, right? Fossil fuels is another elephant in the room. Fashion is another elephant in the room, right? The ones that are polluting the most, the ones that are destroying the most, right? Capitalism is one as well, but how can you change capitalism so fast? How can you can't. You need to rewire, you need to reprogram millions, trillions of people to think differently. And we've tried that before. Communism did not work. Well, some people will say we never really tried. And fascism, we know, is not a good idea either. So how can you expect that to work? And if you even do it towards the people who are trying to end one of the causes you also want to end, and you actually putting them on the side because they're not good enough, how you expect to change anything? And to me, the intersectionalists, they're doing really well in terms of morality and putting people into perspectives again. But what are they achieving? And to me, not so much. They're only creating huge divides between people, when we should actually be united a lot more for one cause, and then we can talk about one cause at a time, but not all of them at the same time. It's way too complex, way too complicated.
Something I want to comment on here that I know that would be, if anyone watches this that is part of that community, let's say, or part of that group, I know one of the things they would say to you right now, and I want to touch on this because recently I had a conversation with Alex Kolb. If anyone knows him, he's an activist based in Germany, and he made a post on this, and it was actually a very good point. And basically what they would say to you here is that you are comparing different issues and deciding the importance of them, and that in itself is a form of oppression. They would say that you are saying that one issue is more important than the other. And how he responded, and how I cannot think of a logical argument against what I'm about to say, which is why I'm going to say it. He said that they make the claim, these individuals, or some of these individuals, because this is not all of them, all right. There are some very much level-headed people that call themselves intersectionals, and I've met them, and they're great, and they have a very solid, logical way of doing this. But they're not the loudest ones, and they're definitely not the majority, unfortunately. But anyway, what they would say is the usual kind of rhetoric, the messaging is that to compare and contrast and say one issue is more important than the other, like one oppression is more important than the other oppression, is a form of oppression, they would say. Now turn that around on its head, and to say that different forms of oppression that are unequal are equal is also oppressive. Okay, so for example, let me to put into a context of an example. If there is a woman and she has to pay the pink tax, so like more tax on something that she needs, like tampons, for example, and there's a higher tax on that, that's a form of oppression. Also, a pig being hung upside down and having their throat slit is a form of oppression. To say that these two oppressions are the same is oppression on the pig.
Sure.
Do you understand? That is a form of oppression. Now, this is something that a lot of intersectionals that I've discussed with, they've completely ignored that fact. And they have told me that I am the one that's being oppressive. I'm the one that's being unfair or bigoted for saying one is more important than the other. We have to establish that there has to be some form of, like, they're not equal. And to say they're equal is oppressive in itself.
Yeah, that one is more important than the other.
And Francois saying that we won't have a planet to live on. We literally will not be here. There won't be any oppression because there'll be no human race. That makes that issue higher up, more important, whatever you want to call it, than the others. Because what's the point fighting for the others as hard as this one if nothing will exist? You know what I mean? We're not going to be here. And I think we need to be rational and logical in where we apply our time and our efforts, not just focusing on emotions and the idealistic way of doing things, which is, as you said, Francois, it's idealistic to say that we can fight for all these things equally, because they are not equal in their severity. They're not equal in the number of victims that they have. So they are not equal. And to say they're equal is oppressive in itself. So I think that's something we're just completely overlooking. But that's my thoughts on what you said. Yeah. Shivya, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to play the devil's advocate here,
Okay.
and say, what about there is a lot of human oppression still.
Yeah.
And like, are we saying that human oppression is not, something that should be paid attention to? And I mean, there are instances where, like a very simple example, vegan alternatives are leading to human oppression in some form. And so, I mean, what is your take on that?
Does anyone want to?
So I'm not saying that human oppression is not important at all. I'm just saying that there's issues that, like David said, are not as important, like he said with tampon tax, which actually I agree with if it's not sustainable, and other things that are really not important, but real issues, yes. So I'm totally on board with as much as I can and as much as I can give my time to, but my main focus is animal liberation, because the planet is dying, animals are dying, and that is my main focus, and that's what I choose to put most of my time into. But that's not to say that I do not have compassion for human issues, or I won't help with human issues as well, because I do as much as I can. But I think we're talking about the smaller ones that are not really relevant when there's such big issues going on in the world.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I'm talking about anyway.
And I'd like to add as well is that I know some people, some humans have no choice. I know some humans are slaves. I'm absolutely aware of that. But I also know that the majority of people in our world right now have choices somehow, can make a change for themselves too, can rise up for issues that they think are important too, if that's something. So we see that in Hong Kong, for example. They're rising against the Chinese government. They're doing it. Well, it's not working out so well at the moment, but they're doing it. There are issues as well where in Indonesia, for example, as well. In India, the caste system, for example. But people are rising up against it, but they can rise up against it. Animals, on the other hand, cannot rise up against anyone. And if they do, they always get killed in the end. If they do, they always get enslaved and put back into the truck, sent to the slaughterhouse. And to me, that is the biggest form of oppression we can find. It's the purest amount of slavery in its form. It's so bad that we even breed them into being slaves their whole lives with no decision over what they want to do. Even hunting nowadays is not even hunting anymore in most parts of the world. We actually breed animals to become released in the wild a few days before the hunt starts. So it's like we've created this sadistic system where they have no choice. There's no way they can defend themselves at all. And it destroys the planet, and it destroys our health. And to me, that's just I just cannot abide with that. To me, humans have the capacity to get out of their own shit, but animals will never, ever, ever be able to do that. So this is where I cannot really agree with you, because yeah, I recognize they're slaves. I recognize that that's absolutely wrong and it should be removed. But animals have no choice, and that just breaks my heart. It just breaks my soul. I hate that idea. I hate that idea. They can't fight back.
My comment about the with human issues, it's I think people get this, not people, some people that would call themselves intersectional, they get they create the idea, they kind of project this idea onto somebody like myself or Francois or Cath or any of us here, basically, because they project the idea that we don't care about human issues and only care about about non-human issues. They say, like, you only care about non-humans. It's not the case. Caring more about the non-humans because their oppression is more severe and in greatly higher numbers doesn't negate the other issues. It doesn't negate human issues to say that I'm focusing on this one because this one is by far the worst, and that is not oppressing humans. By it, when me saying what happens to a pig is worse than what happens to a human does not oppress humans, and it doesn't make their oppression any better. It doesn't mean like, oh yeah, you're safe. Everyone's suffering. I get that. A lot of people suffer, but that we have to accept, in my opinion, that there are levels of suffering. It's not all the same, and my time is spent on the ones, like Francois said, that can't defend themselves. And it just happens to be that the ones that can't defend themselves are also the ones that are suffering the most, which is, I can't even think of anything worse. They're completely defenseless, 100% innocent. And they're receiving the worst treatment, the worst violence on our planet. what else could possibly be considered more important than that? You know, I just don't know what it is. And if that me saying that makes me somehow bigoted or somehow I'll accept that. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. That makes somebody bigoted for thinking this way. I think it makes them logical and rational. And I think we need to, in my opinion, we need to really kind of accept that. I don't know. I don't know what a logical argument could be against that. I really don't. I'm yet to hear one. I've heard many, but I'm yet to hear a logical one. That's where I stand.
Yeah.
And Shivya, you had a second point, didn't you? Sorry, it wasn't just the human oppressions. You had another point after that, didn't you?
I did. It did come back to me, but it's kind of what Cath said earlier, which is that a lot of people who kind of have the vegan awakening or whatever you call it, the awareness to make the decision to switch over. I think there are also people who are a lot more aware of the human issues. So yeah, I think just tackling like one of those kind of takes care of the others in the long run.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah.
And Cath, do you want to close on one more point here? Do you want to close your topic?
Yeah, what Shivya just said, I think a lot of intersectional vegans may have come into veganism through a different avenue. So say, for example, women's rights or something like that, and they found veganism through that. So their main sort of focus is still human rights, and that's fine. But it's not mine. My first port of call is always animal liberation, and I'm against all other forms of oppression, but I physically just don't have the time to put my energy into everything. So I put everything into animal rights.
Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. No, I think there's nothing, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that. There is nothing wrong with that, and you shouldn't be made to feel guilty. You shouldn't be attacked or berated, or which I know that has happened to you. Has happened to me. I don't know about Shivya or Francois, but received kind of nasty comments from some individuals that don't agree with what you do, even though what you do is basically what you do is focusing on the non-humans, and a lot of people don't agree with that you should focus on non-humans solely. But that's the way it is, and I don't think you deserve any abuse for that. If somebody wants to do it that way, then that is the way they do it, and if you don't agree with it, then you just move on and do it your way.
Yeah.
I don't know why anyone feels that they have to start a fight with somebody if they are all working towards the same goal.
And also I'd like to add one thing is that if you don't physically oppress anybody, if you don't, if your words are going to oppress someone, you can look into trying to change that, right? But if you don't oppress somebody physically, I don't think you can be called, you can be called an oppressor in itself, right? There are things that we do that still oppress other human beings around the world. I'm absolutely aware of that. But if you don't physically have the intention to do it, there's a difference between being called an oppressor for that than actually have a collateral damage through your choices in your life. So if you know that Primark is one of the worst places to go to in terms of human oppressions, don't do it, right? Because you know about it. Go to the more ethical choices, right? It's more about the consequences of your choices. But then to just light up, create this whole blanket statement saying just because you have a choice to choose just the non-human animals at the moment makes you an oppressor, to me is an absolutely falsified statement. It doesn't make sense because I am not oppressing anybody physically. I am not choosing to oppress anybody physically. I may be unaware of certain things. Please educate me about the topic. It's the same approach with people who are not vegans. You're not going to tell them, yeah, you're just an oppressor. Some people do that. Some people are very aggressive about it. It doesn't work really well. People don't like it. It's the same for them as well. I think they should really approach us in a different way and make us aware of certain things that we are not aware about. And gladly take that in and accept it. But they have to understand that process is going to take a while because nobody went vegan overnight after just seeing one video. Maybe some did, but most people don't. It takes a long time to process, and this is the same thing. And certain things that I do may be sexist. I don't recognize it as of yet. I don't know it yet, but maybe with time I'll be able to see it and change my behavior. Maybe, right? So it's a very long process, I think, and they want the shortcut. But that's not going to happen in such complex social structures that we have in our society. It's much too complex. Yeah.
Okay. No, it's a really, I mean, I can't disagree with anything that anyone has said, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's looking at this in like a purely logical, rational sense, which is what we are doing. This is what will happen. Every conversation on this topic, if it's dealt with rationally and logically, it will come to the same conclusion. Because the reason I say that with such confidence is that the only conversations that I've had that have been dealing with ration and logic have gone this way. The ones that have not dealt with rationality and logic, as in the ones that have dealt with feelings and how someone is upset because they don't feel like they're being agreed with, or they don't feel like their point is, basically that's it. I find that the conversations I've had that have gone wrong have been where I have posed the same issues, the same comments that we've said now, and I've tried to have that logical discussion, and then I've just been labeled as, oh, you would say that because you're a white guy, or you would say that because you're cis white male, and the logic and the rationality just disappears immediately, and then it becomes what does that have to do with anything? And then we go into the history of the European oppression on non-Europeans and white people on non-white, and then it goes down that route. And honestly, for me, like, of course, like I am aware of what some of the ancestors of people of my race did. I'm very aware of it. I'm aware that there are repercussions of that right now, but we have to remember that it's, history doesn't just end at that point. Before all of this, there were black people enslaving black people. There were Middle Eastern people enslaving Middle Eastern people. There were some white people enslaving white people. We have to consider that it's not black and white as it seems. You know what I'm saying? So we can't just keep using this to debunk somebody's point. We can't just keep using their skin color and where they're from as a way to debunk what they've said. We have to look past that and, like, what is this person saying? I want to take them at face value. I will take them at their point. Forget about where they came from and what they've done before and who they are. Listen to what they have to say and just logically and rationally discuss it. And I think we'll get a lot further with this topic than we ever have done. But unfortunately, that is not what's happening. It's really not what's happening. I've had more rational discussions with people in India, right, where they have way more of a reason to be angry with someone from Britain. Okay, trust me. And it's not like it was that long ago that they were having issues, thanks to my very probably closer ancestors with in comparison to slavery, for example. Like the ancestors of the British that actually did what they did in India was far more recent, yet I've had far more rational, logical conversations with individuals in India than I have with people, Europeans, about the same topics. And that tells you a lot, doesn't it? There's an outrage culture that I think needs to be, that outrage culture needs to stop. And we need to just start talking to each other properly without looking for reasons to get offended and outraged. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So it's vegan guilt, white guilt.
Yeah.
History guilt.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, Shivya, what are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, obviously you are from India and you know the Indian community and you know how the your friends and family, I guess, how they are with attitudes towards the British. And, so I'm curious to see what are your thoughts on, should people like myself be accountable for things that happened in the past with people that looked similar to me, and should that affect the point that I'm making now? I guess.
No, I mean, of course, yeah. It's a way of twisting the argument and like changing the topic. But if we're talking about animal liberation, that has nothing to do with your color or your upbringing or your language or where you come from. I think it's such a global topic, like something that everyone should be able to relate to, irrespective of, their backgrounds and who's making the point. It really doesn't matter whether it's coming from a white person or a brown person or a black person. Ultimately, like, the animals don't have colors, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that okay with you, Cath? Do you have a final comment to finish, or do you want to finish there on that point, on that topic?
Finish there on that point, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of lost a little bit of the structure there, didn't we? We went round again. It's a very big topic, though. I guess that's why we went round again. Yeah. I'm getting licked right now. The dog's here licking me. You want to see? I'll bring her into the camera. She can see what she thinks about everything.
What's going on?
That's YouTube.
Oh.
She's awesome.
Mhm.
Good girl. Okay, just so you know, in case I'm looking distracted, it's because she's like 3-year-old puppy. So, but yeah, you finished? Thank you. So, my topic then, I guess, is now to finish, and mine's yeah, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but not really. Actually, no, we haven't touched on it. We haven't touched on it actually. Now I think about it. So, my topic is: do the ends justify the means? As in, if an action is unethical or immoral, but it brings about a big moral or ethical result, let's say. So something is bad, but it brings about a lot of good. Is it justified? Do we do it?
That's so tough.
Can you give an example of what?
An example?
Yeah, like what is bad that would bring good?
Okay, testing on 188 rats and killing them to produce a burger that imitates meat that could potentially save billions.
Oh, someone else can answer this.
Or, for example, having a revolution in 1933, electing Hitler, building highways. So now Germany has awesome highways, but allowing blitzkrieg all over Europe very quickly.
Damn, that's a really okay.
I obviously I don't agree with. I don't know anything about. Did you say it was the Beyond Burger?
I was talking about the Impossible Burger just now. So I guess for people watching that don't understand that, I'll explain what I was meaning. So the Impossible Foods is obviously a food company. They made the Impossible Burger. They had made a decision to. They didn't have to. They chose to optionally do animal testing on 188 rats, where they killed them all, of course, and drained all of their blood. They did things like vaginal exams on them. It was not pleasant. I've got all the data. I've got all the study. I've read the study. And basically they did that because the reason they did it was to get the product to market faster and to get more trust in the product. So what I mean by that is they already had it in the market and it was selling, but doing this test would make the sales go better, like more sales, because they could promote that they were fully safe and a lot more companies would stock it. So they chose to do the tests. Now they claim that it's justified because it could potentially save a lot of animals because people might switch it out for meat. So is it justified is the question. Something like that. That's a good example, but there are many examples. Is it justified?
It depends. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Cath.
Yeah, I don't personally think it's justified. But saying that, it's like in your head, you're like, so many animals are they've I don't know, have they manipulated it to make it seem like it's gonna was there another way around it? Could there have been another way around it?
Yes.
They're obviously not a good company to do that.
No, Peter contacted them and offered them a way around it and they ignored them.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's justified. I don't think it's justified. They should not have done it. But
if there was another way, okay. So if there was no other way, then let's imagine this scenario, because this is. It seems like I'm giving you a desert island question. I promise you, this is not like a desert island thing. This is something that all of us are probably going to have to face at least once in our lives, where we have to make a decision that is a bad thing, but it could bring about good things. And I'm asking, do the ends justify the means? So is it ever justified to harm an animal to save animals, for example?
Yes, I think so.
Go ahead, man. Expand on that.
I think so, because you shouldn't let feelings get in the way of rationality in terms of effectiveness and the impact that you can have. So let's say you want to do a rescue, for example. You want to save a pig or you want to save a chicken, but you know that that chicken is bred for living up to not even a year old because her heart will give up or his heart will give up anyways. Or for example, you want to save a pig, but you know that you're going to have to, unfortunately, feed that pig extra food until he or she dies. And that's a lot of resources, right? But the resources were already available for that pig up to the age of 6 months old in the industry. If you save that pig, does it justify you saving the pig for using more resources, more water, right? Or for making a nice story out of it and then inspiring people out of it? Or is it actually not better to leave that pig there because anyways he will die or she will die in a horrific death, unfortunately, but the resources were there for that pig. And so if you don't make a video out of it, for example, if you make inspirational video, is it justified to save the pig or not? And I'd say no, it's not, because you haven't inspired anybody to actually see the pig as an individual, right? It's a bit of a more complex idea, but if you do create an inspirational video out of it to show that the pig has individuality, then it's worth taking that risk of saving the pig, even if you have to sacrifice more resources in the long run, because pigs live very long and eat a lot of food, for example.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
So it really depends on what you're doing. So often I see a lot of activists who go in, save animals, right? But don't try to create a media buzz behind it, because they just want to save the animal. But in essence, their will to save an animal is actually very emotional, for their own emotions, and also to help the animal, of course, for his or her life. But the end is not effective, right? It requires more resources in the end, because you have to keep that animal alive longer. You have to take care of him. You have to bring him to the vet, etc., right? So it wouldn't justify it unless you manage to somehow mediatize it. I think that's a more interesting point than bringing up the Impossible Burger, because the Impossible Burger is just a marketing stunt. It's just to make more money, right? And I think that's not so much of an ethical decision that they took. They just wanted to get it on the market as fast as possible, and fuck the rest, right? It doesn't matter. And that's just their excuse to sell more in the end anyways. The Impossible Burger is a joke. Just like adding a vegan option in McDonald's, it's a joke. It doesn't add anything, at least in my opinion, right? But I think when you talk about, for example, saving an animal, but if you do it in the intent just to save the animal with nothing else attached to it, just for your own liking, for saying, I saved an animal, I'm such a good person, or I saved his life, look, he's so happy now. If you show it and you can inspire people to show that it's his individuality, that's fine. But if you just do it for your own sake, here I think it wouldn't justify the rescue, for example.
Okay. So you're focusing on the rescue as being like entering a farm as being like the bad thing, let's say, like for a greater group. Right. Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if feelings wise, it's the best thing you could do, right? Our feelings would tell us, yes, of course we need to save the animal.
I understand.
But in the end, it doesn't justify that because you'll be using so many more resources to help that animal stay alive, when in reality, he or she would have been killed at the age of 6 or 7 months old. And you wouldn't, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Shivya, what are your thoughts on this then? So doing something that would be bad, whatever that bad is, to get to somewhere good.
Yeah, I think if I put this in the human context, for example, if 5 humans have been kidnapped and there's a situation where you can sacrifice 1 human and save the other 4, as opposed to letting all 5 die, I think you would do it. Okay. And I think the same goes for animals. Like, of course, my heart would go out to the animals that die in the process. But I think it's worth saving. Let's say it's worth, sacrificing 10 or 20 animals because there's no choice. I mean, of course, if there's a choice, then that's different. But if there is no choice, and sacrificing those animals to save 1,000, I think it justifies the end.
Okay. Cath?
I agree. You just threw me on the impossible one because I didn't know what had happened there, and it's just such a sort of messy. Yeah, it's not a straightforward thing, is it? But like Shivya said, if there's 20 animals and they've said they either all die or you pick 5, then you pick 5, because I mean when we go into these farms and we take animals, we have to pick which ones we want to save. So it's similar. I suppose it's similar to that.
So okay, thanks for all those points. I'm going to say I completely disagree with all of you. So here's why. So not all of you, sorry, Francois, I agree with you in terms of the bad action, breaking into somewhere to save someone. Like, it may be illegal, but I would do it. Absolutely. I would break in. So if there was my neighbor had a dog and this dog was being abused, I wouldn't even question it. I would break into his house. I would take the dog and I would take the dog to, I don't know, somewhere better, a sanctuary. Okay. I wouldn't even question it. That's the point where I agree. Now the part where I disagree is choosing, like sacrificing lives to save lives. For example, if forget the Impossible Burger, right? Let's imagine that I'm in a situation where I need to kill 200 cows to save 1,000 cows. Okay, for example, or let's make it even harder: kill 200 but save 500. Let's say, so it's a closer number. Now you're in the group of you're in the the side of saying like I would do that. That's what the general consensus here has been. Like that is justifiable. That is rational. I disagree in that it being rational. That it's rational because, in my sense, the way I see it is that we are hailed and self-proclaimed animal defenders. We tell ourselves and we tell other people that they are all individuals. They're all deserving of life. That is why you should not kill them. Okay, and then now, when we're in a situation where we have the choice to sacrifice some to save others, we suddenly go back on that word and say, well, actually, no, we have the choice. We can decide when to kill them or not, but you can't. Because the reasons we want to kill them are more important than the reasons you want to kill them. And who gets to decide that? You know what I mean? Do we get to decide it because we're vegan? You know, what if somebody says to me, you want to kill those animals to save animals? Well, I want to kill them to eat them. Your point is, your opinion is just your opinion, and my opinion is my opinion. Why is your opinion more important than mine? You want to save them, I want to eat them. My opinion is valid, your opinion is as valid as mine. I see a massive issue there. I believe personally that as a self-proclaimed defender of animals, that I don't have the right to make a decision on who dies at any point. And I personally, like, I would never kill or say it's okay to kill animals to save animals, because then that makes me just the same as any other person in society who is not a vegan or an activist, because they also say it's okay to kill animals under certain circumstances. I want to be completely consistent and say it's never okay to kill them. If we have alternatives, it's never okay to kill them. And even if this means that more would die from that decision, I believe by making that decision, we would completely lose our status and our footing as a solid activist. I believe if we made that decision, we become confusing. Morally, we are it's void. Our morals are void at that point, because we just did what other people do. We agreed that yes, it's okay to kill them sometimes, you know, for an unnecessary reason. For an unnecessary reason. What do you think?
I think the key is, do we have an alternative?
Yeah.
Because if we have an alternative, I think we'll all pick that. But are you saying that, you know, if there are 700 cows on a desert island that are starving, and you have a boat that can only carry 500 cows, so you have to leave 200 behind and let them die, will you save the 500 or will you not?
So let's move away from a desert island and let's look at something that actually could happen. All right, because I like to deal with like actual physical things that could happen. So, for example, Joaquin Phoenix, you know, the actor Joaquin Phoenix, or yeah, I guess everyone knows who he is. So he, in his film, one of his last films, he rode a horse for the entire film. Okay, as part of his job as an actor, he had to ride a horse, which we all know is exploitation. That's exploitation of a horse. All right. Now, he was paid millions for that. Like probably millions. Is it justified with the good work he will go on to do with those millions? Is it justified that he could exploit that animal? Now, I say no, it isn't. I say by selling out, that is him selling his morals, and that is, I don't care if it's millions. That says to the world that we will sell our morals for money, and it doesn't matter what we're going to do with the money, because we sold our morals. It's done. Like, we made a decision that exploiting this animal is okay. In this exact situation, it's okay. And I'm going to go and do it. And the second we do that, I believe that we have failed the animals, in my opinion. I feel that that is one of the few times where we could say, yes, we failed the animals, because we made a decision that it was okay to exploit them, when I could have chosen not to.
Yeah, but then it really depends on it really depends on whether or not you want to be right, because you are right. I really believe you're right. Or do you want to be effective?
Yeah.
Right. If I have to kill, let's say, if I had to ride a horse just for a movie and I could get millions out of it.
Yeah.
I could invest in so many activities and activism activities that could save so many more animals in the long run and achieve animal liberation that we want to achieve. So that's why I'm saying I think you're using too much of your emotions in that one, because you want to stick to your morals, which in essence is really good, and I agree with you. but in practicality is not. I wouldn't recommend it.
So I guess like I would say that maybe I've been misrepresenting my own points, but this is purely logical, dude. Like, as in, I'm saying that for us to say we want animal liberation, and at the same time say, but sometimes we're allowed to exploit animals, just you're not. That is illogical, in my opinion. That is irrational. That's what I'm getting at. Like, without feelings attached to it. I'm all about purity. That's not what I'm getting at here. I just don't feel like it's a rational decision for an animal defender, for animal liberation, to use and exploit an animal to get to their goal.
Yeah.
It seems to be a little bit backwards.
With regards to that one, another thing that it's not as straightforward, I suppose, because with that, if he did not play that role, someone else would have played that role and would have rode that horse and would have got that money. So I, as a vegan, as an animal rights activist, would much prefer that he played that role with that horse and he got that money than someone else. Yeah,
I mean, that's another way of looking at it, and that's also, but we have to be careful around this, because that's also an argument that sometimes non-vegans use. They say, well, the animal's already dead, so you might as well just eat the meat. You know, and then we go down this route of, okay, so are you vegan if you eat dumpster diving for meat? If you eat that meat and cheese and that milk, is that vegan? You know, are you still a vegan activist if you do that? Or by doing that, are you still exploiting the animal? Do you know what I mean? Because the idea that somebody would have ridden it anyway, well, someone's going to eat it anyway. You know what I mean? It applies to other points. And how comfortable are we with that?
Yeah, okay, but that's it within the action, not within the result. And the result is that there's a million that you get out of it.
Yeah.
That you could reinvest into making animal liberation possible, or at least one step closer. Whereas if you go dumpster diving, unless you find $1 million in there, or if you're there to do dumpster diving and you get $1 million, then I'll freaking do it, right? If somebody tells me eat meat and I give you $1 million, I do it, right?
Okay.
It's a no-brainer. Even if it goes against my morals, I know that in the end I'll be able to do such much bigger changes with that money.
Okay, so veganism is avoiding animal exploitation as far as practical and possible, unless there's a lot of money involved, and then you can do it.
No, unless you know that the effectiveness you can have later on will be a net positive.
Right. Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree too.
So it sounds like we need to redefine veganism, doesn't it? So I'll close this point then with my last point. In that I believe that if we go down the slippery slope of saying that some exploitation is justified if it suits our goals, I believe that we will end up probably along the lines of being just as bad as somebody who chooses to eat and use animals for their own personal goals, because I don't think any of us gets to decide on where that line is, because we are not the owners of animal exploitation. We don't get to decide what is justified and what isn't. And for me, the only way to be consistent on this is to say no, absolute no to all exploitation, with no exceptions. That's my opinion on that. But yeah, we'll close that topic, and we're at about 1 hour 30 minutes now. So I think we can kind of conclude and round off. I can tell you that the comments haven't been working here, but they have been talking about us in the YouTube page. I'm going to quickly fly through now and make sure there's no important questions that maybe we could have talked about, or if anyone's like, please answer this, please. I don't think there is anyone.
It does say that it's a private video.
It says here it's private, but it is on YouTube. I promise you, it is happening on YouTube. Unless you've shared the wrong link. If you shared the link to this stream, wait, where's she just gone? Where'd Cath go?
Disconnected.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, the link to this stream is private, but the YouTube is public. So if anyone's come here to try and watch us, they will have missed it. But oh wait, she's back.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
It's okay. I was just saying, Cath, if you shared the link to this page, then yeah, nobody can see it. But if you shared to the YouTube, everybody can see it. They've been talking over there. But they're talking about the intersectionality debate got quite interesting. They were talking there, saying that about somebody who's not, I think it was Maheshwar was commenting, saying about other oppressions and that activists should focus on them. because if not, then their people are still oppressors, but they're just not oppressing animals. That if somebody is oppressing other humans but not non-humans, then we should be focusing on that for that reason. You know what? Here's an interesting thing. So I saw the other day. I want to see what you all think about this. This is going to cause a lot of issues, by the way. I'm just going to warn you now that I'm going to get in trouble for asking you this, but I'll ask it anyway. Somebody said that if there is a pig about to be killed in a slaughterhouse, and somebody who is a massive racist rescues them, is that pig going to say no? And say, no, you're a racist, I don't want to be rescued by you. Somebody made this point, and I know it's a null point, it's a bit of a weird point, but I guess they were making the point that even somebody who has disgusting opinions and disgustingly oppresses humans could still liberate animals. What do you think about that as a point, as someone made? I'm not saying if I agree or disagree, I'm just saying it's an interesting point that's been made.
I think it's good. I think if racist or sexist can find its will to save an animal and give him or her a better life, I think by spending time with that animal and realizing their personality, they'll open up to other causes that are intersectional, and they'll slowly progress towards that and realize their flaws elsewhere. I think it's a good way to do it. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
What do you think, Shivya, on this topic?
Yeah, I think if you can find the compassion within yourself to, be affected by how an animal feels, then you can definitely find compassion within yourself to feel the same way for humans.
Yeah. And there are groups out there like Antifa being obviously the main one that actually promote physical violence against racists. And they would never even dream of working with one. But then, and I think most of us would not want to work with a massive, horrible Nazi or racist, But again, another point, and this is something that these are not desert island questions. This is something that could happen and probably has happened. If one of these individuals is a vegan and does liberate an animal and asks you for help in relocating or caring for said animal, would you help them?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is somebody who is a known racist. I'm talking about for Cath and Shivya, somebody who's a known racist.
They ask for my help in liberating an animal.
No, they've already liberated the animal, and now they need your help in moving or caring for this animal, for example.
Yeah, of course I would help. Yeah.
Shivya,
I would help as well. And I think like alienating someone, I mean, they might have their opinions and it might be really difficult to engage in a discussion, but it's always worth trying. And I think alienating someone about their opinions is never the answer. Like you can't achieve much with that, but you could potentially achieve something by engaging in a conversation.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's also a question of understanding that culturally we're all different and we've been raised differently. And some people were raised in a racist background, and so they became one, or they were influenced by some people that made them that way. Yeah. And seeing that I managed to change and become vegan is enough proof that anybody can change in any other areas. I'm sure I have a lot of work to do in other areas like sexism and anti-racism. I'm sure I still make comments that are not appropriate, but I'm still trying to work on that. So people can always get better, and so I wouldn't see why I would stop myself from helping that person with that animal. Definitely,
yeah.
And I'm sure it would all help a non-vegan rescue an animal as well.
Yeah, so. I think that as much as like most of us would prefer not to work with an individual with these kind of whatever kind of beliefs they have, whether it be racist, sexist, or transphobic or any homophobic, whatever. I'm sure most of us would prefer not to work with any individual, but I believe that most people, including intersectionals and including Antifa members who are vegan, would help in that scenario. And I think this is something that I think we could grow a lot by considering that, is what I'm trying to say, is to think about what we find the most important here. And if anybody is prepared to allow an animal to suffer because of a human issue, a non-human to suffer because of a human issue, like a human oppression, then that's fair enough. But I don't think many would, and that's why I brought it up. I'm just curious to know what the consensus would be on that.
Yep.
I'd like to think that most all vegans would save an animal regardless of someone's views on human issues.
Yep.
And regardless of who they are as a person, it doesn't matter who that person is. We're in it for the animals, not
Sure.
for people's views on human issues.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got someone asked a question, which is really good. Have you still got time? Does anybody need to go urgently or anything? We have got some questions in the comments.
Right.
I have more 15 minutes left, I think.
Great. Okay. So somebody asks, what about animal rights activists who work as slaughterhouse workers to get the footage? They have to eat meat to blend in. That's a really interesting question.
I think it's very good. I've met a few from my side of work, and I think what they're doing is absolutely very difficult, especially if you already have your morals that you don't want to abuse animals. And we go back to justifying the means that we were talking about before. So they're taking that vow, that they're breaking that vow basically, but that is almost necessary work in order to get footage that we'll never be able to get otherwise, that would shock the public in order to move towards animal liberation. So I think it's absolutely justified, and these people have such courage. I think I'll be able to do it myself, but with my notoriety I can't anymore, but I think I'll be able to do it. Like I said, I would eat meat if I were paid for it. I would eat meat to even get footage that nobody else can get, so that we can, make things move forward. I think I'd be capable of it, and I think it comes back to what we were talking about, the vegan guilt. Like, if you're capable of doing it, do it, because it can really help the movement forward. And I don't know what you think about it, David, because then now this is kind of similar to what you were bringing up.
That's the first time that I've discussed this, and someone's come up with an example that that goes completely against that's the only example that I've had that's made me think, shit, actually, that's a situation where I would have to agree that person is completely, that's one of the hardest things they would ever have to do, and for what they get from it. Without that, the movement would pretty much crumble without that footage. Like, there would be nothing. We'd just have our word, and people would have the defense mechanism of, well, I don't believe you, and then we would have to say, okay, I can't prove it. That's it. Thanks, bye. So actually, that's put a big spin on what I said earlier, and I'll have to take it back. I have to go back on it. There you go. It is justifiable in that one situation, and I guess there will be more situations where I would consider it justifiable, but that's the first one. That really is the first one that I would consider it.
Situation at a time and analyze the situation and see what the outcomes, what the best outcome is going to be for what road you just want to take.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I support these people 100%, and I know how psychologically destroying it can be. So the risk they're taking as well to be discovered, they could get beat up by the rest of the workers there. They get PTSD for sure, even more than the others, because they're so much more sensitive to what they're seeing. They're taking a huge chunks of their lives away as well, because they have to make awful work. They have to do awful work. So yeah, it's also almost honorable what they're doing. It's a very difficult job. You don't leave that job without scars. That's for sure. Yeah, it's not as easy as Yeah, go ahead.
I'm guessing you're pro as well.
Yeah, of course. I couldn't do it, couldn't imagine doing it, but yeah, absolute admiration for someone who can.
Absolutely. I think, I have to agree. We have two other questions. One I do have an opinion on, actually, but basically the questions were thoughts on vegetarians and also thoughts on vegan gains calling out the vegetarian. Did anybody see that? Vegan gains video. So Francois, you saw it. Cath and Shivya didn't see it.
No.
For anybody watching, I'll just quickly explain what he did. So Vegan Gains is a YouTuber, quite a famous YouTuber. He makes a lot of videos about veganism, obviously, about the morals and the philosophy behind it. And also, he likes to call people out on the bullshit. I'm just going to say it. He likes to call people out on their bullshit, straight up. He's very straight. Some would say aggressive. He's not very understanding. But that's his style. And what he did recently, he went to Toronto Veg Fest, which is supposed to be a vegan festival. And on the stage, there was a panel, and one individual of this panel labeled herself and introduced herself as an intersectional activist, and said that the reason that they were intersectional was that both humans and non-humans should all be treated the same, and they should all have equal rights. And then it became apparent that she was a vegetarian. So you see, there's a bit of a mix-up there. So what Vegan Gains did, he went on the microphone and he said, "You're an intersectional. You believe this. You just said that. Yes. So would you rape a human then? Would you rape and murder humans?" And she, of course, was like, "Oh my God." And it caused a big fight. And he just kept repeating the question over and over again. And she couldn't give him an answer. It got really awkward. He basically did a disruption. Okay. He did a disruption. That's what he did. So yeah, what do people think about that and that approach to that topic, I guess, is the question.
I love the fact that he did that. I love that. Like, if she's saying that she's intersectional and yet she's only vegetarian, she knows about the dairy industry, she's at a vegan festival. For me, I think the dairy industry is worse than the meat industry. So yeah, I think that she should have been called out.
Okay.
I don't really agree with what he did, because it's, again, coming back to everybody's on their own path and trying their best that they can do. And you don't know what other issues she has in her life. You don't know anything actually about her except for the fact that she calls herself an intersectionalist and that she's vegetarian. I applaud vegetarians regardless, even if they tell me it's too hard to quit cheese, and I can't respect that, but I can't tell them anything if they still say I'm still going to eat cheese. And because I always remember that most people do not go vegan overnight. It can take them 2 years, 1 year, 2 days. It can take them 10 years. It takes a long time before you actually make that change. And so being aggressive towards that woman and putting her on the spot like this, I think is kind of, it's creating this idea that you are self-righteous and you know better than her. Instead, I would go with the route of education and kind of showcase nicely what her wrongdoings are. Let's put it this way. And I say that, but because I'm trying to kind of take a step back from where I am. But let's be honest, Vegan Gains is the one who made me vegan. And he's always been very aggressive. So it can work on certain people, but I don't think on the majority of people it would work. And so that's why I can't really I can't really be okay with his way of doing it. It doesn't really work in my eyes.
Yeah. Well, so I agree with Cath that dairy is probably much worse than meat. But I do agree with Francois that calling someone out and putting them on the spot this way, like in an angry way, is more alienating, and it doesn't just alienate her, but also like the larger audience out there, because like vegans already have this reputation of being really pushy and shoving their opinions on people, and I think this just kind of lives up to that reputation. I think it's important to call it out, like if you feel that it should be called out, but there's a nicer way of doing that, maybe in private or another way to do that, or in a way that you're kind of educating people about it, but not really just shoving your opinion on someone or alienating someone. So I think there's a better way to do it.
So my opinion on this is with Cath, I'm 100% behind what he did. I think what he did was absolutely the right thing to do and the right way to do it. And the reason I say that is because this individual was in a position of power. Okay, this individual was doing a talk at a vegan festival and openly stated that they were in support of ending all oppression, whilst funding one of the very forms of oppression that the entire festival is against. She had been a vegan for 5 years vegetarian for 5 years at this point, and still wasn't able to go vegan apparently. So for me, I believe what he did was justified, and the way he did it, although maybe angry, maybe he could have been calmer. His message was absolutely perfect and needed. To give an example of why I think this, I actually had this discussion already, and I put it into a different way to make it even more apparent that what he did was correct. It's like me. Let's imagine that I am, I have, let's say, been hitting a woman. All right, I've been doing it. That's something I've been physically doing, and it's become known. Okay, and I'm giving a talk at a feminist group. I'm giving a talk for a feminist group, and someone finds out during this talk that I have actually been hitting women. And I would expect them to get up there on that microphone and dress me down in front of everybody. And if I'm offended by that, well,
Your
that's
problem.
my
Your
fault
problem.
being dumb and naive. I need to expect that. If I know that I've been doing something that like that, I should expect the repercussions of it. This individual sat down on a panel in front of a group of people who are all vegan at a vegan festival and wasn't vegan and expected what? Expected no one to say anything about it. And when she's talking about oppression and ending all of it while she's oppressing animals, she knows what happens. She's a member of the Toronto Vegetarian Association, which is basically the vegan association, by the way. So she knows exactly what's happening. So for me, I think what he did was absolutely fine and justified in that scenario. In other scenarios, it would not be okay. In that exact scenario, I think what he did was very much okay. And that's my thoughts on that one.
But I think it kind of reflects the organizers to invite her to the panel and give her this position of power, right?
It was a weird decision for sure. Very weird decision to give this person a position of power in the festival like that. But at the end of the day, she took that risk just the same as somebody who is abusing women takes a risk if they go on a stage and speak about feminism. You're taking a big risk, and you have to expect that someone's going to call you out. You have to expect that, and you better have a damn good reason for what you did. And in her case, luckily for her, she could have given good reasoning. She could have said, listen, I've got this problem, I've got this, I've got that, but she didn't, because she had no answer. And that's the point where that it was even more necessary. There was no good answer. So I don't know. Yeah, I watched it and it made me cringe, obviously, because it was very uncomfortable. But this isn't comfortable. It's not comfortable. What happens to the dairy cows isn't comfortable. What happens to the male calves isn't comfortable. You know what I mean? It's we're talking about uncomfortable things, and I believe sometimes we have to get nasty. Sometimes we have to get direct from time to time. Not all the time, but there are very specific situations where someone like Vegan Gains is very much needed. He turned Francois vegan. There's somebody in the comments, actually, I saw it, I glanced at it, said that they turned them vegan as well for watching Vegan Gains videos. That's Tushar, my friend from India, from Ahmedabad. He went vegan thanks to Vegan Gains. So, we can say what we want, but I mean, it works for some people, right? It does. But yeah, okay, I guess we've lost Francois. I don't know. I think maybe he's left for good now, because he said he had to leave soon. Or maybe he just left in a fit of rage because he wasn't happy with the points we were making. I'm not sure. He rage quit. But I think that's it. I think we'll close it here. It's like coming up to 2 hours. So I'll just say thank you both. And Francois, I'm sure he can watch the thank you later if he wants to watch it. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I think this has been really positive, progressive. I think we've been very fair. I don't think, you know what I mean? I don't think anyone's been particularly mean about any particular topic or group of people. And I think this is how discussions are supposed to be. We say what we think honestly, but not getting into a fight and not trying to offend people, just trying to have logical, rational discussions about really important topics. And I'd love to have more and more of these as well. So I'll say thank you again. Thank you to everybody watching. If you're watching this and you're thinking that you have some important points and you think you would like to do something like this, then you can contact me on Instagram, send me a message, and we'll have a chat and we'll see if we could get you in on the next one of these, next live stream. And if there's anything else you'd like to add, both of you can add now.
No, just thank you for having me. It's been really good.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
No, thanks so much for coming, especially you, Shivya, because it's so late for you now. So especially for you, thank you so much for staying up late. The last time I did this, I was the one staying up late, so I was exhausted. So I know how you feel, and I really appreciate you making the effort. And I guess, did you even have your food yet, by the way? Or is it still waiting?
It's waiting for me, but I'm a night owl, so it's all right.
Okay. Well, no worries. So you go get some dinner, and Cath, I'll probably see you. Oh no, the light's gone. I'll probably see you in a few weeks, actually. So see you soon in London. And yeah, thank you both again so much. And thanks everybody for watching. And yeah, see you all next time.
See you later.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.